Hello and welcome. I am Cyril Stober. Tonight, Tuesday Live will focus on the role of the media in national security. Well, it might just seem to be an internal affair, an area that's strategic and essential to every part of our national life. From pre-independence to post-independence, the media remains indispensable and a catalyst for accession to self-rule. Now, many decades after, through military dispensations, and to the worst side of more than 60 years of the existence of Nigeria as a sovereign nation, the commitment of the media has shown patriotism and allegiance to the Nigerian state. But in recent times, these feats achieved by members of the fourth estate of the realm have come under threat, as some sections of the media have delved into issues inimical to national cohesion and capable of influencing negative tendencies, including hate, ethnic profiling, religious bigotry, and sensationalism. Tonight, NTA Tuesday Live brings together guests from the academia, media experts, practitioners, as well as Nigerians on how to get out of this situation. But just before we go into our discussion, let's get to see this report by correspondent Adebola Brookslyn.
The security of every nation, no doubt, is vital for the survival and growth of its political, social, and economic system. As a source of information for any society regarding any issue, people rely and even trust what is presented to them by the media. As the fourth estate and watchdog of the society, it plays a crucial role in national development. The media observe events in the society, select specific ones, and present or interpret them the way they want the audience to understand them.
One of the great worries should be, for us, what harm is done to public information. I think that the time may come, if nothing is done, when nothing will be believed or nothing will be believable.
In performing this function, false and wrong information dissemination have seen the world marked by great turmoil, fears, uncertainties, and ever-changing nature of relationship among states, as well as intra-state conflicts.
Instead of us to lead calm and rational discourse on the existential challenges we face with a view to promoting actionable solutions, we have succumbed to hysteria and the next exciting clickbait headline.
In reporting the security sector and performing the watchdog function, journalists sometimes encounter obstacles and challenges such as restriction of access to information despite the Freedom of Information Act in the country.
To get some information, especially from the government offices, are usually hard. Sometimes you go, you are not acknowledged. Sometimes they treat you in a way as if what you are coming for is not important.
The National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, is the organization saddled with the responsibility of monitoring media activities for harmful emission, interference, and illegal broadcasting.
In Section 5 of the Code and Section 1, which covers crisis, emergencies, and disasters, it says what is basic then is basic timely information at times like this. If you know that you divulge too much of the details, it will affect the investigation that is going on or affect the security procedure of the people who are charged with that responsibility, then douse it.
The advent of the social media in the past decade, however, has revolutionized communication, overshadowing the traditional ways of communication, which has become a tool in the hand of those that can be regarded as enemies of the state.
What concerns the NBC is the content that is on this platform. The power of the NBC empowers us to do that now. But this is an evolving technology. It is developing as the regulator is also looking at ways to check it properly.
The government, in conjunction with media practitioners, needs to evolve and adopt strategies that strengthen and safeguard the nation online and offline platforms in line with the nation's core values and security without trampling on individual liberty and privacy. One of the takeaways is that journalists will be remembered as the frontliners, especially in this digital age where the internet never forgets and records are kept for posterity. Adebola Brooksland, NTA News.
All right, that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. We'd like to introduce our guests. Let me welcome General Ibrahim Malgui Haruna, as a former Federal Commissioner for Information and Culture. He joins us in Abuja here. Right. Okay, you're right there. Thanks for being with us tonight, General. Okay, let me also introduce Professor Umaru Pate is Vice Chancellor of Federal University, Kashiri, Gombe State. He's a Professor of Media and Society. Thanks for being here, Prof.
Thank you, Cyril, and good evening, Nigeria.
All right. We're also joined tonight by Teresa Tekena, social media expert. Teresa, good to see you. Also welcome to this program Professor Layo Shaw, a former Dean School of Communications, Lagos State University. Prof, good to have you join us tonight. All right. Every Tuesday at the appropriate time, you can get to be part of the discussion in the studio. We'll refresh your memory on the procedure when that time comes. But for now, let's begin to look at the role of the media and national security. But first, to put this into perspective, let's come to General IBM Haruna. That is more known. He was a former Federal Commissioner for Information and he is a lawyer. Is there a basis for comparison between media practitioners of the early days and those of today? Okay, so we're having connection problems with that. Let me put the same question to Professor Pate, looking at the early days media practitioners and those of today. Is there any basis to compare?
Well, thank you very much, Cyril. You see, if you are talking about comparison, you have to look at the complexities as well as the dynamics of each of the individual moments in the history of Nigeria. The role of media continuously has been changing depending on circumstances and the different era in the country. Let's start from the independence period. If you read through the literature, you'll realize that a lot of people argue that the media was partly responsible for the collapse of the First Republic due to the negative actions of a lot of our media organizations and individuals as at the time. These things are contestable depending on the side that you decide to be. But certainly, if you go through the literature, you could see clear evidences of some of the negative roles. But this is not to suggest in any way that the media did not significantly contribute to achieving the independence of Nigeria as well as the consolidation of independence. Now, when the Civil War came, the media now came together to support the war effort of the government as at that time. If you go through again through the literature, you could see some skirmishes that happen, not so much, but on few occasions where the government complained about the behavior of certain media organizations. Then after the Civil War, it was the period of rehabilitation, reconstruction, and trying to promote the unity of the country. Again, the media played very significant contribution up to a point when it started also questioning the continued remaining of the military government in power until when the Murtala Obasanjo government came. Also, they had their own early moon period, also has some few problems. During the Shagari era, it was also rough. And again, the literature is very, very clear and some people raise argument that the media was also significantly contributory to the collapse of the Second Republic. Again, like I've said, it could be contested too, but evidences abound on what some of the media organizations did in helping to see to the decline of the Second Republic. Then during the Babangida period, during the first Buhari period, when it came, of course, all of us, so many of us could remember the rough times also with Decree 4 and several other activities. And if you could remember, the president on day one said he was going to tamper with press freedom. And that defined the relationship.
Okay. That was General Buhari in his
yes, as at that time. And that defined the relationship between him and between that particular government and the media. But in all of this, you need to understand one thing. You need to understand the socio-economic environment of the different period. For example, when the first Buhari government came, the economy was in decline. Things were really tough. So they came up with things like war against indiscipline and several other tough measures, which also affected the media indirectly. When Babangida came, it started with some kind of honeymoon relationship and ended up also on a very tough and maybe bitter note, with a lot of decrees coming from government and some arrests here and there. So if you generally take a look at the relationship of the media and governments in Nigeria, it has been mixed, and all sorts of accusations and counter-accusations. And this is not only that of the media, but several other institutions could also have also been indicted in some of these things that we have been experiencing. But importantly, you cannot divorce the behavior and performance of the media from the performance of the economy as well as the politics of each of these moments. If it were to be a military government, you will see the kind of approach. In a civilian setting, you could also see, and whenever things became a bit tough, maybe post-coup periods, or when the economy is getting a bit down, or when politicians became a bit jittery, you could see them also becoming tough on the media, like what we are experiencing now. The economy is really tough and people are preparing for elections. Then likely you may also have some fallout on the behavior and conduct of the media. I will come back to some other aspects of the media and why we are having some of these changes like it is now later.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's go over to Teresa Tekena and say, look, it's been said that the media is always the whipping boy. When anything goes wrong, well, this fourth estate of the realm takes the brunt. Do you agree with that?
No, I can't hear anything.
Right, okay. Let me put it to you again. The media is seen as the whipping boy when things go wrong. And here we are. We say, look, we're the fourth estate of the realm. Yet politicians, in fact, even the military when they were in power, would always blame the media for even their own shortcomings.
Can you hear me? Sorry, I didn't get the question. I think this.
We're having challenges with coming to you. You still cannot hear at this time. Okay, let me put it this other way. We're hoping this time the connections will be right. The media has always come under sharp criticism by various governments across board, be it military or civilian, especially in Nigeria's history. Now, what would you say is responsible for this? Because many times it seems that even when administrations have shot themselves in the foot, they turn around and blame it on the media.
It happens, especially in our current politics now, where I think there was a recent documentary that was shown where bandits were interviewed and all of that, and there was sharp reactions from people in the media and also from the government. I believe that the role of media in nation building is very, very crucial. So in as much as politicians tend to blame media for some of these lapses, the media also have to be responsible in the way they report the news. And for me, who is always active on social media, apart from the regular journalists and editors and stories we see on main media platforms, social media influencers, bloggers and all of that, those are not news are regulated, unlike in the mainstream media where you have editors who are like gatekeepers and stories that are published have gone through a process. For the social media platforms, there is no regulation. Most of the time regulation is poor, so there tends to be there are news that come out which are not really for national progress or national interest. So yeah, politicians tend to blame media. Sometimes it's a way to shy away from taking responsibility, but sometimes as well it's also a call to media, to people in the media industry to be able to wake up and do the right thing and report stories that are for national interest.
Let's hope that Professor Lyosho can hear me clearly at this point in time, and because we're going to put the same issues to them, the constant conflict between administrations and the media. Professor Prati talked about an initial romance with the military administration of General Babangida. This didn't really last, and as he put it to us, a number of tough decrees came out. Now, it hasn't been different all through Nigeria's history. There is a romance. The media goes out and does reports when there's a change of administration, and it lasts just about a year, and then the media is blamed for all the things that are going wrong. What do you say to that? Okay, tonight is a night of challenges with the connections and all that. But let me introduce at this point, we've just been joined by Chris Isiguzo, who is the National President of the Nigeria Union of Journalists, NUJ. Chris, good to see you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, viewer. It's my pleasure to be here.
Right. Good that you're here. You're the boss man with the journalists, with the NUJ. And so what are your thoughts about practitioners in the past and now? There's going to be so much for you to talk about. Any basis for comparing how this profession was practiced in the past and now, and why does it always seem that the media ends up as a whipping boy?
Well, once more, thank you, and good evening, Prof.
Good evening,
and the rest of the guests that you have. Well, one thing you must know is that presently, the media has got array of challenges. Chief among them is the pressure that the social media, the new media, has brought to the fray. And that becomes a very big issue. But before I talk about that in detail, you were talking about the issue of doing a comparative analysis, so to speak, between the practice in the past and now, whether there are changes and why the media somewhat has become the whipping boy, so to speak, because everybody looks up to the media. When you have this kind of scenario where everybody now looks up to the media, it points to one fact, that other segments of the society obviously have caved in. And the implication now is that the people now have reposed their overwhelming confidence in the media. Not just the people, both the government and the governed. The government wants things done its own way. The governed also look up to the media to represent them. Of course, the Constitution has made it very clear in Section 22, 1, where it reposed the responsibility of holding government accountable in the media. That means no matter how you look at it, for instance, in a democracy, the media is the middleman that brings information from government, takes to the people, brings to the from the people, takes to the government. So either way, they look up to the media. And when it seems like the government is not properly represented in the media, the attack comes to the media. When it does appear that the people are not effectively represented, their opinions, their general well-being and aspirations, their desires are not appreciably conveyed to those in government by the media, the media becomes the center of the attack. So you can now see that either way, the media is there. Remove the media, there will be blackouts. There will be no information. There is the trilogy functions of the media. The responsibility of informing the people, the responsibility of educating the people. Informing the people is just like giving information. Educating the people is to moderate what the people see, what it should look like, educate them, guide them. It's the media that must play that role of guiding the people, of educating the people. And when you come to this point when it appears that there is problem in the system, there is fear, there is somewhat anarchy, so to speak, there is just crisis, then the media also has a responsibility of dousing the tension. And that is where the entertainment aspect comes in. So you can see that the media is involved all around. Now, before and now, the media professionals that we had in the past were more professional. They were not driven by parochial sentiments. They were not driven by pecuniary interests. They were not driven by mercantile considerations. They were more nationalistic. They were looking at the nation. They were more patriotic. They were looking at what will put the nation as one. They were not more concerned by political, pandering, unlike what we have now. Because the media is now faced with an array of challenges. You have the economic challenge, you have the ownership challenge, you have the data challenge, you have, there are many, Then you are trying to weather through the storm. And while trying to do this, you also have a lot of pandering to do. And substantially, there is now a sharp demarcation between the two divides.
All right, we'll explore these issues further, but we do have a number of reports, and we'll take this one that is coming from Lagos.
The role of the media is reflected in Section 22 of the 1999 Constitution as amended is to police the fundamental objectives and direct principles of state policies as well as citizens' fundamental rights. As the fourth estate of the realm, the media aligns with the three arms of government and keep watch over their actions and inactions on behalf of the public. In carrying out these duties, the peace and stability of the nation stands in focus.
The media was in the lead in the search for democracy for Nigeria, and the media has not rested on our horse. We are still struggling to ensure that this democracy comes to stay permanently.
Information technology has opened the world's window to everyone. Even the media is not left behind, as it has evolved into the new media. This evolution has brought information closer to the audience. As it breaks, they receive. Just as this highlights one of the elements of news, promptness. It has also given room for fake news and sensational headlines, which can go viral just at the click of a button. This is a cankerworm the world is waging war against.
If you are going to tell a story that we know is extremely bad in the sight of people, there is a way we are going to look at it. We want to look at the other aspects of developments that are being done to assuage the feelings or to arrest the situation appropriately.
The hills are here with us in our society, in the sense that we now have a situation whereby it is the negative thing that now dominates the media. I think as media practitioners, we must sit down, think over these things.
The role of the media as an agenda setter is critical, as information disseminated to the public can make or mar a nation. In view of this, the Nigerian Union of Journalists, Lagos State Chapter, says it has zero tolerance to fake news and its peddlers.
And the first step we have taken at the national level and both at the state council level is to do verification. Verification leads to obtainance of ID card, press ID card, which is tenable all over the world.
We should also showcase our rich cultural heritage, you understand, as Nigerians. You know, there are so many things we can do, you understand, in terms of education, in terms of culture, in terms of sports, you understand, that would, you understand, galvanize the interest of our, rather than begin to turn out negative publicity.
More important than ever, key players say the nation is at a critical moment of decision-making, and the media must maintain their role as amplifiers and facilitators of spreading messages that discourage violence, instability, and appeal for peaceful coexistence. In Lagos, Kende Adebisi.
All right, back to the studios now. Let's now get Professor Lai Osho. Hopefully, Prof, you can hear me at this time, and I'm also hoping that you would have listened to the contributions made by Teresa Tekena and, of course, the president of the NUJ, Chris Isiguzo. Let's hear your thoughts.
The NUJ national president that before independence or immediately after independence, the Nigerian media were very patriotic, and that, I don't think that is correct from research, from the literature. The Nigerian press, well, during the colonial era, we had one common purpose: to send the British away. So all of them were united. But from that time, there have been cases of divisions within the media industry, and this was amplified immediately after independence, based on the kind of factional politics, the kind of politics that the people were playing then. It was the time of the Action Group for the West, the NCNC for the East, the NPC for the North, and all these three major political parties had newspapers, radio stations, and so on that they were using to propagate their own ideas. So the basic problem of the Nigerian media is that the Nigerian ruling elite, is not united, and the media tend to follow that as instruments, of waging political warfare by these various factions of the Nigerian elite, and that has been the trend historically up to now. So we need to establish that fact that the main problem of the Nigerian media is not just of the individual journalists or editors. It's the problem of the Nigerian ruling elite, the Nigerian ruling class, that are not united. Look at any issue in this country, you cannot get any national consensus. You find some people will be pulling to the right, some other people will be pulling to the left, and the media tend to give, expression to this kind of divisions, the polarization that we have in the Nigerian political system. And that is our major problem. If the Nigerian elite can come together, have certain basic agreement on certain national issues, you will find out that the Nigerian media will likely toe the line. So we need to, interrogate the character of the Nigerian ruling class. These kind of people that are playing ethnic politics, religious politics, regional politics, and therefore they try to recruit the media in terms of ownership, in terms of using economic resources. If you don't toe a line, we don't give you advert. So these are kind of issues that we need to interrogate. Then, of course, when it comes to the journalists themselves, you must understand that Nigerian journalists are also Nigerians. The kind of narratives, the kind of myths
that we were born into, that we grew into, also influence the kind of stories or the way we look at issues, as journalists. So these are critical issues, and I think Professor Patti said it. We need to locate our problem within the context, the socio-political context of Nigeria. We can't take the media away. The American media works according to the culture, the sociology, the politics of the American society. The British media, the same thing. So you cannot say Nigeria coming from heaven is situated within the Nigerian political system and is behaving according to that political system. We have all these kind of religious things. You now find politicians visiting churches, felicitating with clerics all over the place. Why? As if our politics is based on religion. People talking about, the social part of the country must produce the president, and then the media is giving expression to this kind of divisions and polarization within the society. I think that's where our problem is. When we talk about national stability, the Nigerian elite, they really believe in national stability. I think about a week or so ago, Babangida said, Nigeria is not yet a nation. We don't have Nigerians. And, these are issues that we really need to interrogate. How do we make sure that we have Nigerians who believe in Nigeria and are ready to work as Nigerians? Then we can start talking about the kind of the new media that we need that will reflect that kind of new Nigeria that we are trying to build. But for now, if we continue as we are going, we will have the kind of media that we have, that is, we have, they call it Ubati Press, Arewa Press, Indigo Press, Resource Control Press, and that is the kind of divisions that we have all over the country. So, don't let us blame the messenger. Why would we leave those who actually create the message that the messenger is, putting across? Those who create the messages are those that we should really focus our attention on.
Thank you so much, Prof. I understand we have General IBM Haruna back with us at this time, and we had opened the program asking to know his opinion on what the practice has been in the past, and whether practitioners in the past did a lot better than today's practitioners are doing. But again, we're also hoping that the General has heard the contributions of all the other participants. So now let's listen to General IBM Haruna and his thoughts on this matter.
My reflection and thoughts on this matter has to start with, first of all, there is a need to distinguish the media per se as an instrument of the new communication and information technology revolution. Distinguish that from the intent and content, the content of the practitioners, the journalists. Then thirdly, we have to position this in a critical examination as to what role they play socially, politically, economically, and also in the realms of security. I think it must be admitted that the communication and information revolution and technology, which has brought about the internet, has made the media practitioners' practice needing critical examination, as opposed to the free-for-all practice that is shown in the various internet information provided, the systems being provided by those systems. the crack of the matter is that in it there is free for all, but there is need for journalism per se to reflect and bring out from this media the critical role they have to play for society. And in doing this, I think that the code and discipline for journalists must be very exact and put into use by implementing them, because they are quite different from expressing opinions through the media as those who are not registered or known as practitioners. It's free for all in the media. But examining the role of the practitioners, the journalists, they have to be very critical as to what role they are playing or they are supposed to play. Because in our domestic arrangement, they play a role in shaping policy, in advancing opinions of the people, in implementation of policy, or the creation of the environment in which politics, economy, and social milieu in which society has to breathe and grow. And I think that in the past, the politicians in the immediate post-colonial time did not have the facilities they now have, and they didn't have the connection with which they now have with the people and politicians. They did not have the wherewithals to carry the expressions or opinions of the generality of the people, because the environment did not provide it. If you look at Nigeria, for example, pre-independence and post-independence, there were a few newspapers, and those newspapers concentrated their practice in particular areas, like in Lagos and the Western region. It took time after independence for the other regions to develop their media, to carry information, to influence policy, to advance the use of available instruments like newspapers and subsequently television. Before that, radio method went to very few urban settlements. Now we have the revolution of the technology and the advancement of means and instruments for reaching people instantly, in fact. And I think what is very important for the role the journalists play is very critical, because they can create disharmony, they can create understanding, they can create better literacy if they play their role well. If they don't, they can lead to anarchy and destruction. As Idi Amin had to say, that you can have your freedom of expression under constitutional democracies. This is possible. But under the kinds of governments we had after independence, most of which were dictatorial, you cannot guarantee what follows the expression of freedom of expression or other human rights. I think in Nigeria, in this particular time we are in, pre-election, the journalists, reporters, and the media has to be practiced with great responsibility, because they can lead to serious reverses on the gains of democracy or the gains of development and growth. And also, they can deem the prospect of clear vision as to where economic development and economic progress should go. They have to learn and they have to relate our domestic situation to our domestic needs. First and foremost, they must practice to secure the peace and security and well-being of Nigerians. I think that there is a great deal of expectation from the media journalist practitioners and the media that they are using. We have to look at expectation.
At this point, we'll take another of our reports and then we'll come back to the studio for more on the role of the media. This next report is coming in from Kaduna.
The regulation of media organizations opens space for private participation in broadcasting business. The importance of both print and broadcast media is designed to create awareness among citizenry. The deregulation takes into cognizance of infractions among operators, which necessitated the establishment of National Broadcasting Commission (NBC) and the Nigerian Press Council as watchdogs. Despite these measures, some media outfits run foul of the laid-down procedures.
Instead of uniting people, a lot of media houses owned by individuals and so on use it as a tool to disunite people, bring all sorts of misunderstanding within the community.
The conventional media, radio and TV, they also have their own problem because most, especially the private ones, they are controlled by individuals. So sometimes in an attempt to protect their own interests, they end up offending the interests of others.
This development raised serious concerns among critical stakeholders who are pushing for more stiffer penalties on airing media organizations.
And where a person is arrested for presenting fake news, he should be punished, and the punishment should be publicized so that people who might have that kind of intention would be informed that yes, the government is there, and yes, the government is active, and yes, the government is taking action on these issues.
And the mass media has a great role to make sure it downs the tension, to nip everything in the bud, to ensure that whatever people will read is something that will bring them together.
Placing national interests above other considerations is what is expected of these media outfits, because business of information dissemination is beyond economic consideration. Rather, they should approach issues from a patriotic point of view.
All right, that report from Kaduna. Professor Patti, yes. What's the character that we talk about here when we say the character of the media?
Thank you very much, Cyril. I've heard the comments of our panelists. And you see, the Nigerian media has always reflected the behavior of the Nigerian state as well as the Nigerian nation. In fact, like somebody said, the aspirations, the fears, the concerns, as well as the interests of a typical Nigerian is almost always captured in the different pages of the Nigerian press. And just like the divisions that exist in Nigerian political elite of North, South, religion, all of that, you see the same thing also replaying in the content and character of the Nigerian media. Like what Professor Lai Osho said, it has always been either on this side or on the other side. Sometimes for you to have a complete understanding of an issue in Nigeria, you have to read 3 or 4 different newspapers. And sometimes just by looking at the mere byline of a particular report, you could conclude what the story may look like. Now, you may ask, why have we been like that? Well, it's natural. People establish media organizations for specific interests. These interests could be explicit or they could be implicit. But these differences have always been with us as a set of people that we are. There's nothing wrong with that. The only thing is we do not have specifically defined national objective that all of us are united on. In the past, many of us thought the unity of Nigeria was sacrosanct.
and that everyone was working toward that. But as it is today, you could see it is no longer so. Now you will ask why. You see, things have continued to change. The dynamics have been changing. One, because of technology. Technology has made it so simple today for information to be democratized and access to be simplified, unlike it used to be in the past. Now it is no longer a monopoly of a few elites or just some specific media organization to control the flow of information. Everybody is in it today. And because everybody is in it, it has become easy, and the conventional media is highly challenged. And information that in the past used to be a sort of a privileged kind of information is today available to almost everyone across the board, courtesy of technology and the internet revolution. Now, apart from that, you also look at other aspects. Freedom. When you are talking about democracy, you cannot talk of democracy without talking about freedom. The freedom that we also enjoy has also enabled us to express ourselves, and the equipment and the tools are also available. Then issue of content. Because of improvement in literacy, because of economic improvement, everybody has now become a producer of information. And with all of these things, you have the consequences. And what are some of these consequences? Fake news, hate speech, and distribution of lies all over the place. And these are injurious to what you could describe as national unity and national integration. And these are just aspects that disrupt national integration. There are other aspects. Poverty is the greatest enemy to national integration. The behavior of the elites is the second most dangerous element that defeats or affects our national integration. And you could see it all over the place. Then you have some other things. When somebody is poor, when somebody is excruciatingly and devastatingly poor, he becomes an easy victim for manipulation by any mischief maker. And here you have the instruments of communication through the social media easily available. And then you have the dangerous combination of poverty, of availability of weapons of destruction through communication, and then the weaponization of the system itself, and a very dangerous elite that does not have a defined goal for uniting the nation itself. So what do you have? Instability.
And now that takes us to the now media, and comments have been made on that. But let's go to the social media expert, Teresa Tekeda. And that is what is taking over. You heard Professor Pate say it. Everyone now is a producer of news. All you need is a smartphone.
Every day, because we have, especially for young people, you have the demography of young people on social media, and that's where we voice, that's where we vent, that's where we contribute to, anything that's happening in society. So it's in as much as young people on social media, we also have the older people who use WhatsApp, who use Facebook, and all of this. And these are just avenues where we can as well contribute our own quota. For me, I like to have conversations that value that, conversations, and I also use my social media platform to gauge responses to government policies and all of that. But you also have young people who use social media for entertainment purposes. We have content creators. We have lots of young people who have actually made it in life through using their social media platforms. And all these are also a way of, showcasing Africa, showcasing our country to the world. But you also have, young people who are using social media, to run a lot of fake news, a lot of propaganda and all of that. But I believe that if we have more people, more journalists, if we have more people who can come to social media, who can say, no, this is the right information, who can, and then if we can as well have these platforms have regulated policies, and and that's the way government can as well come in. But I believe that if social media is regulated, some people argue that it could take away free speech and all of that, but it's a two-way thing at the end of the day. There's a way the government can do it, and there's a way we individuals can use social media. But I believe that social media has been is a blessing. It's a blessing. It has been able to, give us the reach, and now we have more rural areas where there are social media users in rural areas as well. So I believe that at the end of the day, fine, in as much as we can argue that there's a lot of fake news on social media and a lot of things happening there, it's still for national good.
Chris, today about the toughest challenge the Nigerian state has is insecurity. And first, you tend to think that you need to be in a secure environment before the other things can follow. And Nigeria has been grappling with this. At some point in time, some would say, is it any better? Is it getting worse? But then, with a situation like this at hand and the challenge of the media, what would you say the Nigerian media has demonstrated in handling and tackling the situation?
Well, one of your panelists, while making contribution, made reference to what he described as responsible journalism. That is reporting with responsibility. Yes, I agree with you with the enormity of the security challenge plaguing the nation. It's there. There is hardly any place that is that one can sleep with two eyes closed. It's a big, big challenge, and of course, it also comes to the table of the media, because the media can inflame it, so to speak. You know, the media can communicate fear in the people the way it reports. The media can also tone down the situation, you know. So that's the truth. But looking at so far what we've done, I think we've done appreciably well.
When you speak about escalating or toning down, where is the matter of facts and factual reporting in this? How do you report an explosion? How do you report a terrorist attack in which scores of people are killed without escalating the situation? Or how do you tone down a situation like that?
Well, like I said, when you report with responsibility, you must bear in mind that there is a kind of report you're going to give out, and the whole place will be on fire. That's the truth. You must bear in mind that there has to be a country for you to practice your trade as a journalist. If there is no country, I wonder where you will be operating from. So you must have that nationalistic mindset while you ply your trade as a journalist. And that's why I've always stressed on development journalism. Yes, most of the people that spoke earlier on said, including Prof, our erudite professor, said that the journalism we have, of course, tries to pander to what the society brings to the table. Yes, but there is also that agenda setting role of the media. Because if we continue to pander to the capricious whims of the political elites, as they've been described, we'll continue to pander to what the politicians bring to the table, then there is no way we are going to be able to continue to promote the unity of the country.
Okay. Let me quickly go to Professor Layo. And I'd like to paint a scenario here, and Prof. The right to know, factual reporting. Here is my example. Road XYZ leads to a major city. For 2 hours, terrorists hold travelers along that road XYZ hostage. They take some of them away, they kill some. How do you report that? How do you tone down that? The people who listen to you want to go on that road. How do you tell them it is safe to go? How do you say it is not safe to go without, creating panic or without giving them false hope?
I think the problem is information management, public information management, which to me, those managing public information in this country they are not really doing well. You have to be a little bit ahead of the journalist in releasing such information. The scenario you have painted, the spokesperson of the security agencies of the government must be ready to give background briefing to the journalist almost immediately after the event to prepare them for it. You can't say don't report such an event. The event will be reported in one way or the other. Maybe just as the lady here said, with the social media, you cannot hide anywhere anymore. So the information manager must be ahead, prepare the journalist in terms of providing the interpretative framework for reporting such an event. But we leave the thing to the journalist, so the journalist is on his own. There is no briefing, there is no background information, and therefore they report what they get. But if we have proper information management, not killing the story, not saying the story should not be reported, but trying to provide some guidelines on how to report such an event from the information manager themselves, then we will have some kind of toning down of the story. So, but what we get here is that you find security people or people from the Minister of Information saying, don't report the story. That is not information management. That is censorship. In these days, you cannot censor the media anymore. But people can still manage information from a very honest perspective. Sometimes something happens, you may not need to give figures. 20 people killed, 100 people killed. That may be frightening. But that story can still be reported to give people a sense of what had happened. And then later you try to build, maybe through some kind of other kind of stories, maybe as the NTA president said, development journalism, solution journalism, try to now fill in the gaps here and there so that people can have at least some kind of respite. There's no fear, and you don't necessarily raise too much hope, where there is none, but there is some kind of middle of the road kind of thing. But it takes a lot of expertise in information management to do this. It's not, it's not killing the story, so to say. So I think we need to, to get that people in government, people in the security agencies must, up their games in terms of managing the media, very well. We need people who have some, very strong background in public relations to be in charge of government information at this period, in that we are in now. Election is coming. There will be a lot of contestation. The level of insecurity seems to be increasing, and I think we need people who can manage information properly without denying the existence of some of the challenges that we have now.
All right, we'll take a short break here. When we return, there'll be more on the role of the media, and hopefully phone lines will be open and you can get to be part of the discussion in the studio. Stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back shortly.
Is affected by the circulation of illicit small arms and light weapons in our communities. Our beloved ones, breadwinners, farmlands and livelihoods are lost. Our homes are lost. Even young children are not left out. These weapons cause pains and sufferings, devastating our societies. It is our collective duty as every Nigerian stakeholder, religious or community leaders, traditional rulers or civil societies, and at every level of governance to work with security agencies to stop the proliferation of illicit arms. We must shun the trafficking or possession of illicit arms. We must reject any inducement to help in its transportation. We must report all suspected individuals or groups involved in the smuggling or stockpiling of small arms and light weapons or illicit arms to the nearest security agency for prosecution, as our government is very determined to end this menace. Let us come together and work for safe and secure Nigeria. This message is brought to you by the National Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons.
157-kilometer Lagos-Ibadan Railway is the first double-track standard gauge railway to be built in West Africa. The Mobolaji Johnson train station is a masterpiece, an infrastructure that is gradually becoming an iconic building in Lagos State. The modern facilities put the station on a world map of train stations. Likewise, other new train stations across the country built to world-class standards. The train and its convenience is indeed an admirable effort, with commendations from Nigerians.
This is a station that we have to commend the federal government for putting a beautiful face, empowering us in Lagos State, not only in economic and political arena.
I can say that I'm really impressed with the infrastructures in place. Kudos to the Minister of Transportation. Kudos to the federal government.
Truly, good things are coming out of Nigeria, and the federal government is deserving of all the applause.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. Now, this segment, you can get to be part of the discussion in the studio. Let me just quickly say this. We do it every Tuesday. If you call in and your call gets through, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And we always encourage you to go straight to the point, keep it short, and don't waste too much time on greetings. The lines are not what you may hope them to be. And so we encourage you to just go straight to the point. We'll start off this segment with another of our reports, and this one is coming from Enugu.
The fourth extent of the realm, the media has played tremendous role in nation building. Being the watchdog of the society, it has bridged the gap between the government and the people, thereby promoting peace and stability for national coexistence. In recent times, news industry has observed an irrevocable change due to the introduction of the new media, which has altered the norms of the 20th century. With the key known features of new media such as digital, interactive, virtual, among others, which has distinguished it from traditional media. Experts in Enugu are of the view that the developments, if professionally checkmated and source verified, will go a long way in repositioning information dissemination in the country.
Now, the highest source of information dissemination in our society today, with email, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, etc., etc. Anybody can reach a mass audience within a space of seconds. So it has its own advantages. It also has its own demerit. So we must be very careful how we deploy our social media, especially in matters concerning the stability of our nation.
However, since newer communication technology has increased the possibilities of how people send and receive information in today's society, the continued growth of the trend has no doubt places that information consumers must no longer pass through traditional gatekeepers. Some experts in Enugu maintained that assessing the source credibility of this widespread information could be a challenge, even though it stands as the fastest and most affordable means of disseminating messages of hope, peace, and prosperity in the country.
We need information. We need to communicate. Social media will normally enhance communication, interpersonal relationship. But my fear is that it is now very easy to mislead people.
The new media we are talking about, first of all, we must have a kind of a regulation to start with, because there is nothing like absolute. Personally, I do not believe in gagging the media. I believe in that, in freedom of the press. But freedom without responsibility will lead to chaos.
On the contrary, some other key players in journalism profession opined that the new media could pose an inherent danger when not used or placed properly for the targeted populace.
Fake news trends in social media alarm, raising false alarm, and so on and so forth, imagining things that never happen. And people now use it as an avenue, to even create tension, to hit the system.
Since the new media has created shift from the old notion of gatekeeping function of journalism to gate watching, media experts in Enugu concluded that it is imperative to consider the credibility function of any information from the new media, especially in a country like Nigeria that has millions of elites with diverse cultural backgrounds. In Enugu, Kelechi Ochiara.
All right, we have a caller already on the line, and this is Hassan calling in from Kano. Hello, Hassan, go ahead. Hassan, are you with us?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Good evening. Yes, we can. Go ahead.
My name is Hassan calling from Kano. I've had, first of all, I would like to say hi and welcome the people there in the studio. This is a very important topic you brought on today, on Tuesday night. Now, talking about the role of media in national stability, there are so many things that has to be put in place. Now, first of all, the issue of politics. The government, most of these media organizations are used to play partisan politics in terms of putting in favoritism, ethnicity, prejudice, and sentiment into their work. And that really bring about a lot of hatred among Nigerians, and that really should be addressed. If really we are talking about using the media in terms of stabilizing the country to foster national unity and cooperation as it should be. Now, secondly, there is also the issue of passing on fake news. I could remember I was in Plateau one time when there was a crisis. What the people do mostly when there is any tension around in the state, people uses radio because there is one particular radio station that tell people, okay, the routes to follow that are safer. You understand? And that really help people a lot. But at the same time, by telling people the roads that are safer so that they will get to their home safely when there are, tension in terms of crisis like that, it also fuel in another act of violence and what have you understand, in other areas that don't feel okay what is going around in the other area that was just said in the news. It didn't go down well with them. So there are so many things that need to be checked. There are so many things that policies that the government are supposed to bring forward to make sure that all these things are being checked properly. And the issue of this social media, you can see that nowadays there are so many bloggers, there are so many platforms in terms of the social media that are passing on fake news or hate speeches. They are a kind of encouraging hate speeches among Nigerians, using politics as a basic tools to a kind of do these things. So I think these things should be checked really by the government, and by bringing in policies and other things, I think this will help regulate a lot of things, and it will bring stability and peace into the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hassan. Yeah, thank you, Hassan, for calling in. Well, let's go over to General IBM Haruna at this point and say, well, General, the prevailing security situation has now pitched news people against security agencies. With so many, scenarios playing out, where journalists believe that they have a right and a duty to report the truth as it is, and the security agencies would rather they did not do it in certain ways. In fact, sometimes journalists have accused security agencies of what they call esprit de corps, overriding national interest and therefore holding back vital information. At the same time, security agencies have accused journalists of irresponsible reporting. You who are a combatant and you've seen action, give us your thoughts on how to tread this middle path.
Well, my thought really is not treading on the middle path. My thought is how to gather together. My thought really is not treading on how to gather together the information, the intelligence required for the purposes of creating a synergy between the journalists and the security agents, the energy that will allow both sides to inform and share intelligence responsibly. If I may just ask, how is it there is no credible or in-depth reporting from our journalists, I presume, sharing what they can get from investigative journalism? Bandits run their motorcycles freely in large numbers. They have fuel. They transmit foreign exchange or get foreign money. They have food. Most of all these, I presume, must be supplies from Nigeria. And if there is synergy and investigative and responsible journalism, I think that there will be a kind of confidence created between the security agencies and journalists, not the accusations we are getting or hearing about failure, because in each case it means either party is not working assiduously to ensure that the security, the well-being of the Nigerian citizens can be guaranteed not only by security agencies, but also by all citizens and all patriots, to which I like to group our journalists. And they must be party to it. Something is missing. Otherwise, we will not be getting the kind of fractures we are getting in our intelligence operations, and also in focusing on ensuring that the Nigerian security, Nigerian people's sovereignty is something to which every Nigerian, be he a politician or a soldier, military, security agencies, must commit themselves. And I think that is where the Nigerian politics comes in, because there is no real critical understanding of the threats that are posed to Nigeria, and for which Nigerian journalists and security agents alike must challenge. I think that if we look back several centuries, the Crusaders had their time. Now we are having the jihadists and diplomatic threats to our sovereignty. It is our cardinal duty as citizens, whether politician or security personnel, to ensure we operate together. We have the Biden belief that we can have unity in diversity. That unity cannot be achieved unless we have a strong background of what we all believe in, like that we believe in Nigeria. The sanctity of Nigeria as our territory and our haven for pursuing the worthwhile pursuits of life, to ensure that we have a future for our succeeding generations. I think if we don't work together, if there's no unity in diversity, then it is impossible for us to put in place what is our place in the world. What can we regard as success? I believe that the Nigerian challenge and measure of success must be on how far we can go in making Africa, the black man in the modern civilization, a credible belief that we can be great. We have the resources, we have the intelligence. But the challenge is that unless we can work together domestically, we cannot reflect externally what we believe Nigeria will come to be. It means as at now, really, there is no consolidation of what we should believe in. The jihadis have something they believe in. The crusaders have something to believe in. The modern day politicians must have an objective in order to belong to the present day world and put themselves in the real dynamics of what will work and make civilization for the future worthwhile for our descendants.
Thank you, General. But Professor Patti, the journalists feel that it is patriotic to draw attention to certain failings in society, not the least agencies that are charged with certain responsibilities. So a journalist might tell you it is patriotic to report that there are challenges in the fight against insecurity, for instance, and they believe the patriotic sense in that is drawing attention to deal with lapses here and there. But the other side does not feel that way.
Okay, thank you. You see, we are giving national stability some kind of simplistic understanding and explanation in the Nigerian context, particularly sometimes by people who should know more. Stability is not just a wish. It's not something you simply say it out. You have to work, and you have to work deliberately to ensure that there is stability in the system. You look at the multicultural nature of Nigeria, how do you respect the sensitivities, the sensibilities of almost everyone in the system? Then you look at the performance of every institution. The journalist or the media is like a mediating agency. It reflects what happens in the various sectors, what is happening in the other sectors. If there are gaps, if there are deficiencies in the performance of other sectors, you do not expect the media to keep quiet. It has a responsibility. It has 4 cardinal responsibilities: the psychological, the structural, the constitutional, as well as the social. And these things, for them to happen, the journalists must engage in proper investigations, gather the facts, and reduce the level of uncertainty that exists on the minds of the people for them to come together. Now, we have collectively, through our own failures, turned Nigeria into something that you can describe as an unfortunate sick man that has refused to respond to treatment and has also refused to die, which means we have to continuously manage the patient. For us, perhaps we may get healed one day, but as it is, every other person is not doing what he or she should do. So therefore, it should not only be the media, and then you also have to look at the weaknesses and the problems that the media itself is grappling with. Funding is one. When you have a media sector that is economically weak, it becomes editorially also weak. Economic independence defines editorial independence. Unfortunately, in the Nigerian sector, the media itself is not that economically independent. We have what you could describe, because of the internet today, communicative abundance. You have so many channels that are weak, and then you have a limitation of attention of the people themselves. Because of the abundance of communication, your attention to all these sources become so minute that at the end of the day you are left confused and also weak as an audience. Then you look at the content. What amount of resources do you have to produce content itself? Content that the people can see and respect. And don't forget, with globalization, now people have access to almost every media outlet globally. So they compare what you give them and what they get from other sources. If government feels, for example, that it could control the media, and luckily, because of the internet, control now has been defeated, just like how access has been democratized. So because of that, people have multiple access.
One of the toughest things here, yes, I still like to go back to terrorism.
Yes.
How do you report, you're a teacher, how do you report terrorism without glorifying
Whether
terrorism?
you report terrorism or you don't, other media organizations will report internationally and people will listen. And that affects the credibility of your media organization internally. In the media, there are 4 major elements of communication for it to be trusted. 1, truthfulness, competence, relevance, and dynamism. And if you think you can sit somewhere and try to control these 4 elements, then you are simply wasting your time, because the internet has made things so easy and so possible today. Now, what we need to do in this kind of situations, how do we empower and strengthen our media organization for them to act as institutions that can be respected and that can keep those who should ensure security accountable? Issue of transparency and accountability is there. The president himself said, if we don't kill corruption, corruption will kill us. And you could see elements of incompetence, elements of corruption, and elements of unseriousness in governance of issues. And these things, the media must reflect them. The media must report about them. And when they do, some people feel unhappy. Some people feel sad. When you see in politics, for example, money being distributed for people to vote, the media reports, and when it reports, some people feel unhappy because they feel that they will lose power. So it's natural that the media will be turned into a whipping boy and will be turned into a criminal kind of thing. The criminalization of the media for some people to succeed in their criminality.
Okay, we'll return to that because there are still other issues. But we have Agu on the line from Kano. Hello, Agu.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Yes, go ahead, Agu, and turn down the volume of your TV.
Before I make my input, I want to really express my little bit. Okay. Before I make my input, I want to really express my
Agu, I hear you hold back.
I'm trying to reduce the radio of the volume of my
Please.
Can you hear me, sir?
Right, I can hear you, but turn down the volume of your...
I think before I make my input, I really want to make a statement. Somebody asked a question about what...
Agu. All right. Agu, let me say this, you might have to call back. And please, we say this every Tuesday. You get through, you turn down the volume of your TV set. There's absolutely no need for you to listen to your own voice resonating. So turn down the volume and speak to us. Is it still there? Okay. Let's go back to the phones again. We have Ada calling in from Jos. Hello.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Ada calling from Jos, Plateau State. The role of the media in a functional democracy can never be overemphasized. A seasoned journalist should not be involved in sensational and biased reportage. For instance, I used to wonder where they used to get the headlines from. You know, please, I don't know, your guest there, she will educate me on it. Sometimes you find a sensational headline. When you read that headline, when you read the story is at variance with the headline in the first instance. Then again, when you report that people died, I mean, you're reporting the number of people that died. Even if you're reporting the number, or if you're not even sure of the number, it's not even better. It's not even good to even report, start mentioning the number if you're not sure. You know, if you're in doubt, you don't report the number. You can just say people were killed. See them as human beings. Then the profile, that's the one the bit I don't like. You know, you profile them. What, as I'm concerned, is mischief. Any journalist, anybody who is reporting that maybe 50 people die and Christians were killed more than the Muslims, it's not mischief as far as I'm concerned. You know, so people should go into responsible reportage. You know that. But the government gagging the media, I don't support it. Because what are you gagging them for? You can call them to order and all that, you know. Gag, suppress it. The world now is a global village. So you can't suppress any information. Other people will report it. Even that's a documentary they're talking about. I thought they would have called them and then, caution them and all that. That documentary has been there now already. So what are you talking about? You can get it from anywhere with the kind of development we have now. So that's not it. And then the government on its own should not be economic with the truth. When you suppress the truth, you're wasting your time. Other people will report it. You know, maybe ahead. Just like one of your guests mentioned, that they are ahead of us. Sometimes we cannot get the information. They keep on suppressing the media in Nigeria, and then you tune to CNN reports it. You go to Al Jazeera, they report it. So what are you talking about? So they should also moderate the way they do their own things as well. Then another thing is that a good journalist should adopt a painstaking attitude while carrying out his duties to enable him differentiate between butter and margarine, even though it looks alike. You know. So, but all the same, I wouldn't say that our media have not been doing the best they can. But the government should not form this habit of trying to gag them, trying to censor them to a ridiculous extent when the world is a global village in the first instance. That's the bit I don't like. God bless Nigeria. Let's not give about this country. We shall be well. I don't know.
Thank you very much, Ada from Jos. Well, Professor Layosho, the considerations that drive you heard Ada talk about headlines, being at variance with the body of the story. At some point, we'll ask Crises to comment on that. But Prof, the considerations that drive certain actions. Nowadays, it's directing traffic to your platform, and in doing that, you can employ all kinds of gimmicks and all kinds of things to draw attention. Headline casting being one of them that draws attention. But again, beyond that, there's also the serious matter of economic survival, which Professor Patty talked about, weak economic base of media organizations. And how do you expect an organization that is struggling to keep a head above water to also think about morals? You have staff to pay. It's generally known that journalists in this country are among the least paid in the world.
I think you have really touched, an important issue. We know, from, observation and from research that media content or media production generally is influenced by the economic situation within which the media, operates. You can't have good investigative journalism if you don't have the resources in terms of, experienced journalists who will do the investigation, and that means that you really have to pay a lot in terms of salary and other remuneration. You need resources in terms of, how do you get information out? Traveling, a reporter doing investigation can be on one single story for 3 months or more, gathering the information to get to the truth. And I use the word truth, in a very, very carefully in quotation, because what is true to me may not be true to you. But you want to provide something that people can say, oh, there's some, sense in this story. It costs a lot of money. So good journalism costs a lot of money, and most Nigerian, media organizations don't have the kind of resources that can do good investigative journalism. Those that are doing such, particularly the online newspapers, they get funding from outside. And of course, those who are doing the funding are not doing it just for free. They are doing it for a purpose. They have their own interest to serve. Okay? So we need what we can call a third sector funding model in this country. The people who can put their money somewhere a kind of media sustainability fund that can, support investigative journalism, by our media. Then, of course, we know that commercialization is the in thing now in the media. Somebody has talked about clickbait by the social media, the bloggers, and the so-called media or social media influencers. Well, that's something, that's a kind of nomenclature that I think we just wake up one day and give to some people, and then they become so very big because they are called influencers and they can say anything and get away with it. So those are the kind of, we create some of these monsters by the kind of, the way we describe them. So they now use all kinds of headlines, they use pictures, photographs to drive traffic. And the mainstream media, they're also doing it. I saw one newspaper today, the headlines were all, maybe the kickers were all in red. And I said, what is the purpose of this? Then the half of the full page, you have pictures. Then there's what is called the wrap round, from media scholarship. The front page of a newspaper is probably the most important page for stories. But now you now find that some Nigerian newspapers are ready to sell that to anybody who can pay money. So you find all these kind of problems because of the economic situation, the economic problems that we have. The media are poorly funded. The owners just use them as instruments for their political interests. And then, of course, the journalists, for them to stay on the job, needs to do one thing or the other, like driving traffic, competing. The competition in the media market is very, very stiff. Very, very stiff. To stay afloat, you really need to do a lot. And then what we now find is that many newspapers in particular now sell their papers through their columnists, not through news. And what we know, newspaper is for news. But now what we get are opinions. So they get good writers who just churn out opinions day in, day out. In a particular edition, sometimes you can find about 10 different opinion articles. And you think that's a newspaper? No. So, but it's a way. They use their names, they use, some journalists have become more or less like celebrities. So they now use them to sell their newspapers. So these are some of the problems that we have. There is no analytical stories, no good feature stories, no good investigative stories in our newspapers. So it's a problem that we have, and that is part of the problem of the media and the issue of national security or national stability. Opinion writing just to push it out there. You don't care what happens, and it's a major problem. So, but we have to go back.
Well, back to the phones now. We have Godwin from Otukpo. Hello, Godwin. Godwin from Otukpo, are you there?
Yeah. Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Good evening. When the colonial master, before they came and they made observation about Africa, Otto Stanley, and for sure, before they came to Nigeria and Africa, they sent some media officials from Time Magazine, USA, and they give legacy information about Africa. And if we can take the initiative by ourselves now, we can change our negative information about ourselves by ourselves and Nigeria. And the information you give out, what you feed is what you give yourself. What you say about yourself is what people look at you and that's not who you are. So the media is improving. Like those days, you don't have more than 2 or 3 stations in Lagos before when I was in BI. When I grew up in BI, NTA 5, Lagos Media Television and Clapperboard. But now there are so many media houses, and it's an idea for them to be able to save the image of Nigeria and then take away this feedback mechanism we have in political culture. The feedback mechanism break down the negative part of the information and then feedback back to the society again as output. And once you give it out as output, the negative part you filter them out.
All right.
Okay. The 2 billion naira to Niger government, there's nothing wrong. Federal government can give out bonds, can sell bonds to some African developing nations that are Nigeria influence on. And when you give them that bond, it stimulates the naira. You understand? The American government just increased their banking rate and it affected us. So much the naira increase to almost 700 and something naira. Is the idea.
Okay.
Thank you. God bless you, sir.
Thank you very much, Godwin from Otukwu. Well, back to the NUJ president. Politics is in the air, and in just about a month, the floodgates will open and the campaigns will start running proper. And there are all these issues in Nigeria, which of course will be thrown up as the campaigns go on. And we're looking at the role of the media. But I want you to take on this question. At the back of your mind, recall that when you send a reporter out who hasn't had breakfast and who is not likely to have dinner to go cover a political rally where all kinds of things are said and all kinds of funds are flying around, how would you turn around and expect responsible journalism?
Well, it is an age-long saying that the hungry man is an angry man. And from the contributions made so far, it has become more like a consensus that the media is poorly funded. And that aspect of a challenge in the media is really spiraling out of hand, out of control. Where you send somebody out, you have not properly equipped him, you've not done the needful, and you expect him to respect the ethical code. It will be difficult. That's the truth. So as we go to the general election, it becomes very, very important that we empower the set of journalists that we are releasing to the field. As for us in the NUJ, we have activated a whole lot of engagements where we are going to train our people, because we have also discovered over time that that is a major challenge we have. Like somebody said when we went on break or so, somebody was asking a journalist, a set of people that he was training was asking, how do you expect us to do this when we are hungry? Should we not go out and make money? And somebody also said, during the election, people are giving money, it's given to voters. The journalist is also a voter. He's also a Nigerian. He's also part of the public, you know. So, but we have to create these platforms where we'll continue to inculcate that patriotic and professionalism spirit in our journalists, in our today's journalists. It's a challenge we have. So we are taking it up very seriously, and we're engaging most of the media owners. Quite recently, we activated the stakeholders, platform, where the NUJ, the Nigerian Guild of Editors, Prof is part of it, the mass communication lecturers and consultants, the Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria, when we must come together. When you look at the NUJ, you're talking about the frontliners. Look at the Guild of Editors, you're talking about the gatekeepers. The Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria, you're talking about the media owners themselves. And of course, Prof and his colleagues are the lecturers, the teachers of journalism. So we are coming together so as to cross-fertilize ideas on how to properly guide the professionals, guide all of us, because it's not just peculiar to the journalists in the field. The gatekeepers are involved. The media owners, Prof just talked about the issue of wraparound. Before now, if you want to understand the editorial position of a newspaper, just pick it and look at it. You have an idea. But today, because of the commercialization, there is wraparound shared by one political party across the media platforms. So when you pick any paper now, what you see is the message of the political party, because they also want money to sustain the company or to sustain what they are doing, so that they will also print tomorrow. So that's a problem. So we are activating this platform so that we properly, imbibe that professionalism in our colleagues as we go towards 2023. Let us not just completely get carried away by what is flying left, right, and center. We recall during the primary elections of the political parties, how different currencies were flying left, right, and center. And the journalists will be like, wow, am I still in this system? I should equally collect my own while it flies. But I can assure you that at the stakeholders level, we are not delegates. All right. We are also trying to do what is necessary so that our people that will be going out for coverage during the election will do that with responsibility. Will bear in mind that after the elections, there should still be a Nigeria.
Right, let me go over to Teresa Tekina, and you are the social media expert, and you give the people what they want. Sometimes you hear some people say, look, but this is what the people want. They want to see these things. They want to see how, not minding the gory sights that are flashed around the world, and those who take these pictures and they go viral, and they say, but that is what people want to see. And some would argue that it's meant to hit out at their sensibilities so that something can be done. Do you agree with that?
I agree with what Prof said the other time about, the whole traditional media and how there's clickbait, sensationalism, and all of that. I think it's because media houses now realize that there is a still decline in readership, and that decline is also caused by digital media. So in a bid to try and catch up with the young people on social media, they tend to want to sensationalize their news in a way that will appeal to, because young people are very instant. We want quick news, we want it to be very catchy and all of that. So digital media, it gives us that room to just be ourselves. But at the end of the day, I believe that the traditional media, because they understand that they need to catch up with young people, they are sensationalizing news, and it's not good. But at the end of the day, this is what's happening. And when they come out, sometimes you see that the headline is carrying a different news, and then when you open the real story, that's where you now see the real news. But because they know that most young people don't have the patience to read the whole story, so they put the real news at the bottom, because sometimes a lot of young people are so lazy to finish the whole story, so they don't even get to see it. So that's why you see sometimes when you read the story, for me, I'm very particular about reading everything I see. So when I see a story, a headline, I click on it and I read, and then I go back to the comment section and I see that a lot of people are already judging and concluding based on the headline. And sometimes I respond, I'm like, did you even finish the whole story? Did you even see that this headline is not correct? So I think we need to be responsible at the end of the day. Journalists, I understand that there are challenges. that has to do with funding. They have to survive and all of that. But we should also I keep emphasizing national interest. We should also consider that the news that people observe, it could become truth. The lies could become truth if they are not being tackled. So it's just for us to be responsible at the end of the day. And another thing that is happening currently is on social media, because it's fast, it's instant. Whenever there is a news that it's something that people want to hear, because at the end of the day, you retweet something that suits your bias. When you feel like if you already have a side, if you already believe this is how something should be, when you see a post that correlates to your own thinking, you tend to want to, share it and increase the clickbait. So if we can also check our bias as readers, check your bias and look at the source. There are people that you should follow. There are people that you follow that you know these people are credible. These people, whatever they post on their platforms, that's to an extent the truth. So follow people that you know have integrity, have some sense of responsibility, because the clickbait, the retweets and the shares, it can be interesting. Imagine when you post something and you see maybe 1,000 retweets and you're feeling like, I posted something, this thing is having lots of retweets. So sometimes they go overboard. They want to have more followers because it's like the biggest thing happening now, and you can easily brag with it. I have 10,000 followers, I have 20,000 followers. So young people, I would advise, I use this opportunity to advise young people, please, it's beyond just having lots of retweets and likes. Ensure that whatever you're posting on your platform, it's verified, it's safe for public consumption.
As we begin to wind down, General, I'd like to come back to you on the matter of insecurity, and this is because one who's been watching this program has not been able to get through on the phone, and there's a message which you would like particularly General IBM Haruna to talk about, and that's in the matter of reporting insecurity, attacks, and in the matter of casualties of security agencies. And so it's easy for everyone to just say, well, the military and all other security agencies are fighting the insurgency, fighting against bandits and kidnappers and all that. And there is, of course, going to be fatalities. How do you report that without mentioning? And this particular message says, you do see headlines, 100 soldiers killed, 50 soldiers massacred, military installations overrun. What does that do to the morale of the fighting men and women?
Thank you. Of course, we know that in sustaining the morale of the fighting men and people in the chain of the offensive, it's not only the fighting men, it also affects the non-fighting men and the citizenry whose moral support and confidence is needed to boost the desire of the frontline man to sacrifice his life for the goals of sustaining a Nigerian nation. But what shocks me most or surprises me is that 45 years ago, when I was Federal Commissioner for Information and Culture, the uppermost problem we had with regards to reporting and journalism as a whole was this issue of the welfare, the pay package, the balanced reporting that should be expected from journalists. At that time, the culture of brand envelope was surfacing, and up to this time, I think the challenge of taking care of not just journalists, but the practice of journalism is still irritating, because it is difficult to expect in a developing country like ours that the reporting journalists will not be tempted. And if you cannot pay the journalist, then he who pays the piper dictates the tune. And therefore, our journalists and the end of reporting can be screwed, corrupted, and bought over by our competing interests outside our domestic interest. Now, I think that we should expect our National Assembly to dig into this matter, because it's one of the foundation of threat to our national security if our people cannot get close to the truth of the matter, because those who can get to it and report on it are not so encouraged. They don't feel so secure. In the same way that their morale diminishes, you have that of the fighting forces and soldiers or security people having their morale and desire to stand up for the truth or stand up for the nation will be diminished. I think the National Assembly should go into it, and the private sector. We think that those we have made to now practice in accordance to the code of practice that did not exist then, but now it exists, like a professional practice of the legal practitioners. But I think that we must do something to cushion and provide fundamental basis that secures the practices of the media and the journalists, a sense of citizenship, patriotism, and commitment, failing which we are putting them in the front line to report, and we are saying no brown envelopes. Then somebody must have to provide for their welfare. They have concerns about well-being like every other citizen. But I think I'm surprised to hear that this lacuna in our in our national balancing of rewards has not been made in a sufficiently positive way. Definitely, the morale of soldiers must be guarded, because we don't want the situation where not only the soldiers but people who are acting in the front line put down their arms or change their loyalty to the adverse side, because that has happened, which has caused some disastrous revolutionary effects in certain climes.
All right. Well, thank you very much, General IBM Haruna, for your thoughts on this program. We thank you so very much, General IBM Haruna, former Federal Commissioner for Information and Culture and lawyer. Thank you for your thoughts and for being with us. Thank you so much. Well, we just have a couple of minutes or less to go. No one program can capture all the issues, but there's just one quick word I need from Professor Patti. In 20 seconds, they used to say, publish and be damned. Does that still hold?
Well, in an ideal setting, yes, but you know that there are always intervening variables. But I hope that is not my concluding statement.
Well, that should be actually, because we've just about run out of time, except for a recap of what we have talked about.
Okay,
here.
we need to understand that the media has a transformative capacity in a setting like our own. And like any other patriotic sector, an individual or professional, the journalist himself is also duty bound. But we also need to understand that things are changing, and there are multiplicity of channels now that the scarcity of attention also. So we need to manage information very well and equip our media as well as secure our journalists in terms of economic safety, psychological safety, and physical safety for them to engage in part of the transformative national agenda that we have.
All right. Thank you very much, analysis. On that note, we must conclude this program, end this conversation. For now, I'd like to say thank you very much to Professor Omar Patti, Vice Chancellor, Federal University, Kashiri, in Gombe State, Professor of Media and Society. Thank you. Comrade Chris Isiguzo, thank you so very much. President, Nigerian Union of Journalists. It's always a pleasure to have you discuss these matters.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
All right. And And let me also say a big thank you to Teresa Tekena, the social media expert. Thank you so much. Thank you. You are the now people who should chase Chris and Co out of the scene, right? The Jay-Z's, right? Thank you for being here. And let me also extend profound thanks to Professor Layo Shaw, former Dean School of Communications at Lagos State University. Professor Layo Shaw, thank you for being with us tonight. And that's our program. Thank you for being with us. Next week, we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober. Continue to stay safe.
Thank you.